All right, it didn't take long for the San Francisco 49ers to already have to reach into the bag and grab their McCorkle, grab Mac Jones to be the quarterback one for the San Francisco 49ers. It's official. I know John Lynch talked about it this morning, basically saying that Brock was out, but it was Kyle Shanahan who confirmed today on KNBR that Brock will be out and Mac Jones will be quarterback one for the San Francisco 49ers, at least against the Saints. Now, I do like what was said from John Lynch. I think he kind of, cooled things down a little bit, because earlier this morning we heard that Brock Purdy was going to be out for, 2 to 5 weeks, and obviously that's a good portion of the season, quarter of the season, and that obviously doesn't sit well with a lot of fans who want to see the 49ers be successful, because as we know, Brock Purdy is very important to the 49ers' success. But he did say that Brock is more week to week. They were encouraged by some of the testing that was done on him and what they've been able to observe. So they're taking it week by week. I do think there is a legitimate chance he could miss the next 2 weeks and maybe return against the Jaguars after missing Saints and Cardinals. We'll see about that. But that means McCorkle, Mac Jones at 3. All that's, it's just a crazy kind of full circle flat timeline. Like, I don't even know what to call it. Just the fact that, all that was made about Mac Jones being the pick at 3, things that have come out since then basically corroborating that that was likely going to be the case. And for whatever reason, the 49ers had an internal change and they went with Trey Lance instead. Then it just makes you think, well, what if they did take Mac Jones at 3? Would he have turned out kind of similarly to what we've seen from Brock Purdy? Obviously, one of the main distinct things that we've been able to determine is, while there are some similarities in how they play, processing ability, throwing with anticipation, playing from the pocket, more, traditional pocket quarterbacks, things like that. We know Brock can move. Brock has speed. He can get out of the pocket. He can make plays with his legs. He can, he can move the chains just with his legs. So he offers that. He doesn't get a lot of credit for that, but there is a distinct difference with Mac Jones. Mac Jones is mobile within the confines of the pocket, but outside of the pocket, he's a McCorkle. So the way that I look at it is how the 49ers find success with Mac Jones running this offense. I know I've seen the concerns. A lot of people are concerned about him playing behind the offensive line. Trent Williams not practicing today, I'm sure doesn't add any, confidence to that. But the way that I look at it is the San Francisco 49ers, Kyle Shanahan, they got to dial it up. They got to scheme it up. They got to get open, on time, in rhythm. And Mac Jones has got to be able to have outlets. He's got to be able to have decisions where he's going to go with the football, and that is going to be able to mitigate the, expected pressures. He's got to get it out on time. There's no running around, creating with his legs, all those different types of things. So that is the difference between the two. But as I've mentioned multiple times, watching Mac Jones all throughout training camp, I thought he was awesome. Like, I wouldn't say that he was overall better than Brock or anything. There were days where Mac Jones had the best practice out of the two, but it was no question. It was still Brock at the end of the day. But Mac Jones showed me enough where I felt comfortable with him and what he could potentially be with the 49ers if he was ever needed to start. So that's kind of how I feel right now. I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm ultra confident that the 49ers are just going to go into New Orleans, without George Kittle, without Brock Purdy, who knows what the status of Trent Williams is, and it's just a guaranteed win. I think that's dangerous. I think that's a dangerous thought process. I think that's how you get punched in the mouth when you just there's a difference between a confidence and a cockiness, and I think when you just think that you're just going to roll someone no matter what is a borderline cockiness. So the way that I look at it, you still gotta show up, and you never know. Every dog has his day, and you don't want that day to happen, in a game that the 49ers, should win, should take care of. But again, in the same light that I'm saying, you just can't assume that it's going to be a win. You got to show up and you got to perform. So I think there's an ability for that to occur, and I think the 49ers can go there and get the dub, and I think Mac Jones can lead them to a victory. I really do. You got Kendrick Bourne coming in. Kendrick Bourne was Mac Jones' #1 wide receiver when he came into the league, so there's already a rapport there. I do think with what we've seen from Ricky Pearsall and Mac Jones, those guys can connect. And, an underrated connection was Braden Willis to Mac Jones. I talked about it all the time. I was like, a underrated connection, Mac Jones to Braden Willis. Every practice, Mac Jones will just find Braden Willis. And from what we've heard from John Lynch today, we do expect Braden Willis to get the bump up to the active roster or promoted, however they're going to work the roster construction. And it's probably going to be Braden Willis playing a lot of tight end for the 49ers in place, or at least contributing. Now, of course, there's Farrell. Of course, Tonjes, the hero from Los Gatos. So we'll see how it all comes together. We'll see who is going to see the Lions' share of the snaps. But I would say don't sleep on Braden Willis because, again, what is important for quarterbacks? Continuity. And when it was Mac Jones running twos at training camp, he was constantly running with Braden Willis, and those two had a connection. Like it was noticeable. It was palpable. So I would just say just something to keep an eye on. Doesn't mean that is just going to happen. But, if Braden Willis is a part of this game plan, I do think that it would be a little bit more it could actually be something if he gets those opportunities because, again, of what I've seen from the 49ers, in training camp this season. So we'll see. Let me know what you guys think about Mac Jones as quarterback 1, Brock Purdy hurt. I know, unfortunate, but let me know what you think about all this in the comments below. And as always, make sure to like and subscribe for more updates.